How's it going, YouTube? Happy Wednesday. Yeah, it is indeed Wednesday. Sometimes the days blend together, run together, roll together, and just end up a blur of stuff and things. Anyway, I'm at the receiver for my current load, and I'm waiting my turn to get into the dock door. They're having a rough morning, unfortunately, so I'm going to be stuck here waiting a little while. But you know, it comes with the territory. Stuff happens sometimes. But I figured while I'm waiting my turn for the dock door, I want to talk about one minor but really annoying element of Kenworth legacy now, T680. Not the next gen, the legacy T680. And this is it. This is the problem. Now, at face value, it doesn't look like much of a problem. This is the portion of the fairing that is also your steps into the driver's seat. Now, this whole component, both steps and this panel, actually this whole piece, this is all one huge piece. These two bolts there, and I believe those three bolts down there, I'm sorry, not two bolts here, three bolts there because I'm blind apparently, and then three bolts there, 6 bolts. This whole piece comes off. Behind this piece are the batteries, which if you have been driving a T680 for any length of time, you know this, but what's the real problem with this whole setup? Well, this panel here, in PACCAR's infinite wisdom, they decided to make this panel separately removable. In other words, there's supposed to be, keyword supposed to be, a peg there and there that will keep this panel in place just by tension or friction or whatever else. Now you'll notice that I have these lovely strips of black duct tape on the seams of this panel, and that is because over the lifetime of this truck, each of the pegs there and there have become brittle and broken. So this panel at one point, before I put the tape on, was just kind of flopping free. Now obviously it's kind of ugly to lose the panel, and it's uglier to lose the panel than to tape the panel in place with duct tape, which is also pretty grody, but you do what you got to do, because I'm sure this panel, if you want to replace it with a Kenworth OEM part, is probably some egregious price, because why not? That's what they can charge because it's their part. And then you got to have it painted, and then it's a whole ordeal, when if you can just preserve the part somehow until you can take the time to actually make some sort of actual DIY fix, or go the full replacement route, whatever, you know, you at least have the flexibility of having this panel in place, because behind the panel, again, are your batteries, and this panel does help to keep stuff away from them, at least sort of, ideally, somehow. Because you look here inside the wheel well there, you've got that shield as well, keeping water, dirt, debris, and everything else away from the battery compartment. And of course the battery compartment itself is also somewhat enclosed, you know, somewhat at least. But anyway, so yeah, I've seen guys that have had this panel just gone, or just driving their truck without a panel at all. It just broke, fell off, and they didn't catch it in time. You know, stuff happens. I've seen other guys who have bolted it in place by drilling a couple of holes and putting bolts through it and just locking it down permanently, which is probably what I'm going to end up doing when I actually have the time to take this truck home and actually work on this problem and get it sorted out properly. With a long weekend coming up for Memorial Day, I may take the opportunity then to do it, but we'll see what actually happens. But yeah, so thankfully, this design flaw, and I am calling it a design flaw, was corrected with the T680 next gen, because this entire panel was redesigned because there's now an air dam pass-through here. This whole panel assembly has been redesigned and made a little more streamlined. The steps have been redesigned, and a battery quick check access door was placed there, which means this panel was made a solid piece of body instead of a separate piece unto itself, which is really super nice. I just wish that someone had thought of that when they were designing this. Would have been nice, but sometimes mistakes don't get fixed until it's time for the full redesign. But yeah, there it is. Now, in fairness, that problem itself is not really a huge, colossal problem. It's really a minor issue in the grand scheme of things. It's just taking the time to get it sorted out and fixed is the hassle. And, you got to figure out the time and effort and energy to get it done in the first place, because not only do you have to drill the 2 holes, then you got to get the bolts through the holes, and you got to get under the truck and make sure that, I'll put it this way. If you don't take that entire panel off by removing those 6 bolts, then you've got to get under the truck to make sure that your bolts line up and get snug down, put Loctite on or whatever to make sure that panel isn't going to wander off on you at some point in the future. Versus the easier solution of just all 6 bolts off, take the entire panel off the side of the truck, check your batteries out, make sure they're okay, because why not? You got the panel off. And then make the fix, reinstall the panel. Alternatively, you could just super glue the panel in place and hope it holds. But super glue can get kind of sloppy and messy, and it can create issues in its own right down the road. At least bolts, you can actually unbolt and remove the panel. Super glue might get a little more special to get that off, if you can in the first place. So, it is what it is, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, minor problem while I wait. Minor solution as well, because I decided I needed to retape that panel, because the tape I'd had on there, I will give the duct tape I was using credit, because it survived multiple days and weeks in below freezing and sub-zero temperatures, and only just in the last couple of weeks have I noticed it become really degraded to the point where it's getting time to replace it before the panel fell off when I was on the road. Because even though I try to take pretty decent care of my truck, I operate in areas that put it through some violence, just because that's the nature of the game, the nature of the job, the nature of the industry, the nature of what has to be done to get freight from point A to point B. So I'd rather not have that panel shake loose and fall off where I can't recover it, because that would be annoying. And I don't like having an ugly truck. So avoiding having an ugly truck is a good thing. I see some guys on the road where their trucks are just beat to crap. Now, granted, some guys are buying really old trucks because they want to buy something on the cheap that just runs and it does enough to make them some money, and then they can just stack cash and then either get a newer beat to crap truck or save up the big money and buy a brand new truck and spec it out for themselves how they want it to be for the long haul, so to speak. Which, either situation is respectable, but it's one of those things where it's like, why not have a little pride in your ride? Yeah, it's at the end of the day, the semi-truck itself, the tractor, is a tool. It is a means to an end. It is a device with a very straightforward function, but in the same token that it is a tool, a device, and a means to an end, you live in it for days, weeks, some guys months on end. Why not take care of it? Take a little pride in it, try to at least keep it in good shape. Because for me, I'm trying to find a way, an opportunity to upgrade from my current truck. It's been a good truck for me since I've had it, But I've got my eye on the long haul, and I've only ever driven used trucks, and I want to get my hands on something new. Yeah, it's going to be difficult in this market right now because it's, well, special for everything when it comes to new. But the opportunities are out there, just a matter of taking advantage of them when the opportunity itself arises, and then going forward from there. And along the way, yeah, used truck values are through the roof. It's absolutely absurd right now. I mean, my truck has appreciated in value since I bought it in December 2020. I'm sure my truck right now, if I wanted to sell it on consignment, I could, if I was offered 80 grand for it, I could be like, yeah, no, you need to go up to 95 to 100,000 because of its mileage, the condition of the engine, and the work I put into it to make sure it's going to be ready to go for the next driver. So we're looking at $95,000 to $100,000 sticker value on my truck as it is right now. At least that's what I believe. Whether or not that actually ends up being the case, well, time will tell. But still, currently it is an appreciating asset, and my thinking is if I can use my appreciating asset instead of my depreciating asset as collateral for a new truck, or depending on what I decide to do, a newer or perhaps more of a novelty truck like an old long hood or something, I think that's to my advantage. So might as well keep it nice, or at least nice enough. And that includes not having panels falling off and getting lost on the interstate somewhere. Good plan, right? I think so. Thanks for watching, friends. I'll see you down the road.